Hi, I'm Alexis Fuller, and we're going to be talking about my inquiry project, which is about play in upper elementary. Now, why is this even important, Alexis? Why would we ever want to include play in something that is more of a serious environment? Especially with classrooms, like just being with children, you always want to have more of a fun environment, but we're going to talk more about why play is important. So, some might wonder why this even matters. Children always play at recess with their friends. Why doesn't that count as play? And they're just children are very curious creatures, and I know that from working with them and also through tons of research. They're curious. They want to figure out the world, why that rock looks like that, why that piece of wood is hanging off the tree, all that jazz. And so when they learn by play-based learning, they actively get to enjoy it. So the water cycle, which one seems more fun to you? Would you rather be sitting at a desk with a pencil and a pen and just looking at a screen, listening to your teacher yap, who probably sounds like the Charlie Brown teacher? Or would you rather be playing with sand and rock and they can actually enjoy, they can go outside, they can dig up the sand, and they can talk to their friends about what they're finding in the sand, or they can go find their favorite rock and they can talk to their teacher or their parents about their favorite rock that they got to put in the water cycle. And so they actively get to see that water cycle happen, which is so much more engaging for a student, is watching something happen. It's like when we grew plants in like 4th grade, actively seeing the different plants, like one was in the cabinet, like going to find the cabinet plant and seeing if it had grown. It's the same for this. So, in according to this article on play-based learning, they say that instead of relying solely on traditional teaching methods, play-based methods learning embraces the innate curiosity and creativity of children to foster their development. By engaging in purposeful play, children not only acquire the essential academic skills, but also develop crucial social, emotional, and cognitive abilities, which is something that as you as a teacher, you are their mentor. They look up to you. They want to know what you're doing. So you must use your class time to teach the curriculum while also trying to mentor them through life, which is something that is quite difficult as teachers, is that we have to deal with that. We have to be their mentor, we have to be their teacher, we have to be their mom sometimes. Like it just depends. And so balancing that, play-based learning is great because they will get all of these skills whenever they get to learn through play-based learning, and they won't necessarily get this through sitting down at their chair with a pen and a pencil. Now, I'm not saying that every lesson has to be play-based something. You can do pen and pencil lessons, but including at least 1 to 2 play-based learning activities changes their trajectory and they get to learn so much more. So what even are the benefits? Is play-based learning even that important for students, and what can they get out of it, honestly? So, according to Learning Through Play at School, a framework for policy and practice, more than a century ago, in 1910 made the connection between children's natural experimentation in the play and the scientific inquiry progress. Vygotsky in 1978 noted that play is hugely influential on a child's development in fostering such speech development, cognitive processing, and self awareness and self regulation. Now, that is something that is so important to a child. So, Dewey noticing that the kids who play get to experiment. Like, this is the same way that as a kid, we got to play house and we experimented. One time we were probably like the mom or the dad. One time we were probably like the dog or the cat, and then one time you could be the AC. You know what? And it happens because I was the AC in my childhood. So you can be whatever you want, and they can experiment through that and understand and learn. So then Vygotsky noted that doing play, like children playing, helps their speech development because they get to talk to their friends, they get to talk to anyone who's around them. Cognitive processing, they get to learn by touching, feeling, doing. And then self awareness and self regulation. That's just something that kids slowly experience throughout their school year. Now, what is the constructivist learning theory and why is it important to play based learning? Play aligns with the constructivist learning theory. According to what is constructivism, people actively construct or make their own knowledge as reality as determined by your experiences. So children don't understand anything until they get to experience stuff on their own. And you know what? I'm sure us as adults also experience this with the way that we probably didn't know where, I don't know, Missouri State was before we came here, and now we're here and we know exactly where we are. So our experience of driving to Missouri State constructs our knowledge, and so now we know where it is and we probably don't need maps. So, neuroscientists have discovered that the prefrontal cortex of the brain is refined by play, and play stimulates the production of protein responsible for the differentiation of growth in neurons and synapses, which is something that is so important. If you've been through Psychology 121, you definitely know that the prefrontal cortex is something that is super important to your development as an adult and even as a child. And so, them playing stimulates just new growth, which is something that is so important for children, especially at their young age. Now, we're going to get into the research that has gone into play based learning for students. According to patterns, according to patterns and representations in play based learning, a systematic metasynthesis of empirical studies in K through 13 settings, as early as Vygotsky, 1978, a stream of research investigated the positive outcomes of merging student agency with adult scaffolding. There's a consensus that, based on the science of how people learn, play becomes an avenue through which students can engage in meaningful, active, and social experiments. So, being active in play means that children will gain so much more. They'll get to experiment, they'll get to play with their friends. So, like my friend down in the corner with the green paint on her hands over here, she is obviously communicating with her friend who's right next to her, and they're probably talking about whatever they're drawing. But still, this is something that is pushing children to be better. These kids up here playing with clay and being able to mold things and make things, that helps them with their physical responses and everything. And then engagement. So why is play-based learning so important for engagement? So the concept of play and its impact upon learning and engagement is linked to several cognitive, emotional, and social benefits, with the bulk of the research literature suited in early childhood education contexts. Although some suggest it can take many forms across the continuum of a learner's journey in school. So this is just saying it doesn't stop in early childhood. It does not. It continues, and you've got to just keep teaching these kids that because it's just good for them. And so this is just helping, saying that students are curious, and as they go through life, they're still going to be curious. I mean, we're still curious as adults. So just keeping that curiosity in their teaching is just so important. And digital games, it doesn't actually have to be physical games. It can just be digital games. So, they mainly benefit STEM students, as STEM students have more availability to find games on things. But according to the effects of digital media, game-based STEM education on students' learning achievements, a meta-analysis, the findings suggest that digital games are a promising pedagogical method in the STEM education that effectively improves learning and gains. This shows that students can use digital or online things to grow in classrooms, and it doesn't always have to be in person with their hands. It can be on technology, which we always see kids on technology nowadays. I know we've all made that comment. My kid will never have an iPad. But sometimes digital games are very effective for a student's learning because they get to actively engage on something that they actually like, which is their iPad, their computer, whatever, and they get to learn through it. So, this is like taking IXL to your students and having them read, or just different apps that they can do physical things on that will engage them. And so, in conclusion, engagement makes students way more active in the classroom, and they're more likely to actually talk to their friends or talk to you as a teacher, and it makes them feel more comfortable. Now, creativity, the children get to, like I told you earlier, play house. That's even just a simple game that we played as kids, but it would probably still go so amazing even as grown adults. And then achievement, cognitive, social, and emotional development, the most important thing that a child will ever learn, especially even in fifth grade, it's still important. And so just having these children be able to develop using your teaching is just something so rewarding. Thank you.